What's up guys, welcome to Wasted Space, and we're back in Space Engineers and back with kind of a viewer challenge video, but what I wanted to do, having not done a viewer challenge in a long while, is kind of do a big multi-part challenge on drones in general, because a lot of people have asked for various drone related things. So kicking straight off, we've got 6 this week, and I'm going to do probably next week another bunch. This week will be the slightly more straightforward ones. Next week I'll be bringing some really specific stuff. So kicking off with what we got here. First up, I went in and decided to remake my mini-welder. Quite a long time ago in survival, I made a mini-welder that was really useful. Lots of people have asked me for it, and I've used it a huge amount myself. So this is version 2 of the mini-welder, which of course now has a grinder on the other end. And what I've done basically is tried to keep this as small as physically possible. Now, of course, with these connectors on, it has to have a conveyor in the center of it. So I've replaced the medium cargo container that used to be in there with a bunch of small cargo containers on the top and bottom. And the other thing I've done with this to try and make it easy to use, if I come round to the control desk here, I can go and find the mini machine, and it has a grinder control and a welder control. So it has a separate remote control for each function. And the idea is this makes sure that the controls are the right way round when you're using it. So if I just jump into the welder control here, you can see everything's all sort of set up. We've got a camera on the front of it. It's nice and sort of, it's very small and it's not necessarily maneuverable, but you know, it's got a very nice progressive thrust to it, so you're not about to go and do anything really silly that means you crash into stuff. So you can come down, weld away on what you want, and then obviously you also have a camera for each one of the connectors on the sides, and controls to lock those connectors. And then if you really wanted, of course, you could also have the grind cam out here, so I could see what was going on behind me as well. But of course, this is reverse my control. So what's quite nice here is I can press T, jump back straight back in, and if I recontrol that same thing again from the grinder control, we can now have it the other way around, and our controls are just as easy to use, and we can go and grind away instead. So if I just come up here just to prove that it is working, because you can't see very well from this perspective, but you get the idea. The perspective actually helps a bit with controlling it. You get a much better idea of how big you are. So there you go, that's my mini machine. There's not a huge amount more to that. I've just done my very, very best to try and tuck everything in as tightly as I possibly can, and that's a theme with all of these little drones. Their idea is for them to be cheap, for them to be survival ready, so hence the connectors, everything's tubed up, and of course for them to be as small as possible, because most of these drones are designed to operate in very small spaces. So coming on to the next one, this is a saboteur drone. So the idea here is it's as small as I could possibly make it, and aimed at being able to fit through small passageway doors, even though it doesn't have to. Obviously, as you'll notice, there's a couple of warheads on the back, and that is part of the saboteur role. So if I just jump in and control this one, what I could do is set the base up and sort of simulate an enemy target, but it's going to give me problems with later down the line recording. So I'll just jump in and give you an idea of what this would be like. So again, everything's already set up for you, and once you've got your control of your drone, you'd probably, I know from experience, this base has a big weak spot down here. If you approach from down below it, there's no turrets, nothing's going to give you any trouble, so you can come up from under here, and as you can see, you're lovely and protected. And in a drone like this, the first thing I do as I come into the base is just look for kind of an obvious weak spot. So, you know, anywhere that looks like it could contain important juicy goodies. So this building here or this building here, I notice there's a bunch of connectors going in there, so maybe this one is the one, and you could come up, line yourself up with wherever you wanted to break in, hit the ejector here, and in the cargo I've got some explosives. Not a huge amount, again this is designed to be sort of survival believable, so I'd reverse out now having dropped my explosives, and I could detonate my way in. And I've not placed those particularly well, but I'm pretty certain now the damage has been done. A few rounds with my minigun are going to break ourselves into. And one of the things I should have done with this point and have forgotten to do is turn off the safety on my warheads, because this is the real deal with this sort of drone, is that you would come in, we've found a reactor by the looks of things, so that's perfect. So we'd line ourselves up pretty much next to the reactor, we'd turn on the ejector, eject all of our remaining explosives around the area, and then as soon as our ejector is empty, there we go, we'd hit 9 to detonate. And that little drone cost nothing to build, but you have the potential, I'm not sure how much damage it's going to have done, but you have the potential to take out some really critical components from an enemy's base just by breaking in when they're not noticing. Yeah, unfortunately I dropped the explosives in a pretty rubbish place, and so they didn't blow up as well. But you get the sort of idea with that. Again, I'll swap to some clips of these things in action as I talk, so you get a proper idea of what they're like. There's only so much I can do while talking and playing at the same time. Next up, we have these are 3 takes on the same drone. I was asked by someone to make a dogfighting drone, and I was thinking about that and thinking, well, the goals for a dogfighting drone has got to be that it's very maneuverable and that it's very small, because those are the only advantages really a drone has over a standard ship when it comes to dogfighting. So here we have, in the middle we have the Wasp, which is obviously a pair of Gatling guns, and this is designed to be super duper small and very, very quick. Works very much along the basis of a sort of dive bomber a la proper planes. And then we have 2 variants on the Brutus design, which is a strafing design. So as you can see, it's got a lot more sideways thrusters than it has anything else. And this is designed to be strafing around while the reloadable rocket launchers do their work. And we have a light version here, which is obviously quite a lot faster than the heavy version, which is designed to actually take some punishment. Generally, the difference between these is if the enemy has Gatling turrets, you want the heavy armor one. And if the enemy doesn't and has just got missile turrets, you can dodge all you like and you can take the light one, and it'll just make it all the easier for you. So again, I don't think I actually need to show you these in control. Maybe I'll again cut to some footage of them doing their business, but you get the idea. We've got sort of some very light, relatively fast drones for that sort of thing. And then moving on to the final design up here, this one is a little bit different, and this will give you a hint as to what sort of stuff I'm looking at for next week's drone video, because so you can see the beacon has a somewhat funny name. So I've got all the turrets turned off at the moment because these things do quite like to shoot at bases without there's something on that base down below that I can't control for whatever reason. And watch, when I turn these on, they're all going to go and focus on us. Oh no, actually no, they're not. They're going to blow up the mini-welder first. And then once they're done, they're going to focus on this point in the rock. And I can't work out what it is that's down there that they like. But anyway, this is a drone in a slightly different way. We are not going to be controlling this. What we're going to be doing, this is my first playing around with programming, is I'm using a mod by Armour, which is a AI mod, an autopilot mod. So I'll stick that down in the links. It's a really simple one to use, and I really like it so far. But basically, we have a bunch of blocks named specifically nav, and they are used by the mod to determine where exactly it is and what exactly it's going to do. So this here is what it's going to be doing, and all we need to do is go in here and hit run on the program block, and it is going to set off. And what this ship is now going to do is patrol a network around this base with those turrets, half the time pointing at a random spot in the rock and half the time looking somewhere useful. And the beacon is going to tell us, the antenna is going to tell us what exactly it's up to. Now, for proper use, I would have this antenna turned off, and I would have it done like I've done with these, where if you delete the name, all you get is that little square with the distance, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to work out what's going on. You see one of those approaching, you're not 100% sure of what's happening. But if you can imagine it with the antenna off, because it doesn't need the antenna, so it can just drive around like this, it would drive around with the turrets on board, everything tucked inside the heavy armour, and provide a nice level of base defence. And on top of that, if I hopefully you can go in here and grab this sensor while it's decelerating. If I get this to detect players, I need to go out of its field and come back in again, because it won't detect me when I'm in it if I've changed the settings there. But basically that sensor has been set up and dictated to turn the beacon on, which is going to flash and warn us that someone has come into the area. What have I done wrong? Don't tell me the sensor settings for enemy actually work here. They do. So you can see the beacon is now going to flash intruder detected with a massive range, and if the antenna was off as well, then it would start being really noticeable that someone is messing around with this thing. And this thing is of course fighting back. It's quite well armed. It can deal with a fair bit of trouble, and you can imagine a few of these floating around the base would make things very easy to sort of keep yourself A, defended, and B, give yourself like an early warning. And the advantage being that they're moving, so at no point are your enemy going to be able to launch long-range projectiles at these with any decent accuracy. You're going to have to come in and try and fight them close range, which means you're going to be taking casualties as well. So that's kind of the the 6 ideas I had so far. It's kind of 3 because 3 of them are the same sort of thing, or 4 because 3 of them are the same sort of thing. The last thing I'll do is I'll jump to the world in which I built these in, just to show you a little bit of what's inside that one and what's inside the slightly more complex one, so you'll get an idea of sort of how they were put together and what's in the middle of them. Okay, so in the world where I built these, and the first thing I'll do is I'll just cut the side off of this drone so you can see the center of it. So just get rid of this. I've mirrored it all around, but get there. That's what's down the center of it, and I've literally just used as many ports as possible around it. So on the top you can see the ports that would be on the top of this. I've got the small cargo containers on. The thrusters have been laid out. I've got all the directions covered, but they're not sort of symmetrically spread. They can't be in this, and the only place where it kind of is a little bit bulkier than the old version is down the bottom here, where I've got the antenna and the gyro. There was no room for those down the center anymore with the thrusters, so I had to have those kind of on the sides. But I think it doesn't matter too much because the connectors have bulked it out sideways anyway. Sorry, I'll stop spinning the mouse around like that. I have no idea why I would do that. Saboteur drone is relatively straightforward. As you can see, there's nothing to it, so you just got to have a look. That's where all the blocks go. Brutus, again, is pretty straightforward. There is not a huge amount down the center of it other than the gubbins that you had to have. So that's where the remote control block is hidden. Gyroscopes are always attached weirdly. So that, yeah, you can see the remote control block and the antenna are both hidden down there. The idea being that sort of those are the bits that dictate whether you've got control of the ship or not. So tuck those right into the center. They're nice and protected. And then otherwise, this doesn't have a connector on it. It would simply be loaded through the sides, and I've made sure that all of the reactors, because this thing needs 4 to make sure it moves properly, are all on the sides and easily accessible. So it's manual loading, but it is survival ready. And that is obviously the light armor variant, so that one's quite quick in comparison. This is the heavy armor variant, same thing, but with more armor and with heavy armor sort of encasing as much of the vitals as I could. I've still kept the reactors etc. free so that they're, again, survival ready. This one actually has one more reactor as well. It's got an extra one on the top because it was starting to sort of hit the amount of power limits that you could use. The idea with all 3 of these is they have enough power to run at max speed, so they are really, really quite quick. And this one is, again, very straightforward. You can see what's going on in there. The only thing that's sort of complex is, again, I've put the remote control and the gyro right down in the center so you don't lose control, possibly, if you're lucky. This one's a lot less heavy armor, but this one's a lot quicker, so it has a lot less of those problems. The only downside is, of course, to make it survival ready, you need reloadable rocket launchers, which means you need cargo for them, which has to be big because they have a big connector. So hence I went for the Gatling cannon approach on the smallest variant. And yeah, the big boy up here, the one, I mean, I spent a little while making sure that I could tuck everything inside this armor layer, so there was, like, if this does get shot at, it's quite well defended. The turrets themselves take a bit of a damage reasonably quickly, but there's 4 of them on there, so they give their own in return. And then this is kind of what's tucked down the center. So these blocks here and the way they're laid out is very important. Those are the 4 that have the names for the mods, and the mod uses the relative position of those to work out where it is. And then down the back here we have the program block tucked away, and if I just access, Armor's come up with a very, very straightforward mod to use. So this is the script which I grabbed off the workshop, as you can see, and get out of there. The deal is basically you use the GPS system to find a bunch of waypoints, and then once you've got the blocks named as they should be, so you've got up, center, back and right, and they're in those relative positions to each other, and that's important. And then you need a program block and a timer block, and that is all you need to make this work. Oh, and sorry, you need your rear thrusters named and grouped like that. And then you go in here and you set up the distance you want to travel to near to the coordinates. So this is 10. This is going to go within 10 meters of the coordinates so I've given it, and then a list of coordinates for it to travel through. And all it does is right at the end here there is an L, which means repeat. So really simple to set up. That's why I liked this one in particular. Some of the other ones are much more complex as to what they can do, but if you don't need that, they're also much more
Otherwise,
complex.
guys, I hope you found
up.
that interesting. If
So
you did,
nice
please
one,
hit like,
with that
please
mod.
hit
Pretty
subscribe.
sweet. Really helps me and the channel out. If you've got any questions or suggestions as to how these drones should go, or how I could go about testing them, perhaps, or even more so, some suggestions for what you might want to see drone-wise in the next video. There's a couple of spots left, if you want to call it that. I've got 4 drones for the next video. I'd like to have 6. So hit me up if you've got anything interesting for that. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I will catch you next time. Oh, P.S. do not forget about the mini golf competition. It closes end of this month, so got a nice bunch of entries already, but if anyone else out there was thinking about entering, remember, need them in soon.